A man does not fall in love because a woman is available. He falls in love when he senses something within her that he cannot possess, only participate in. This may sound like poetry, but it is rooted in psychology and ancient truth. You see, for centuries, women were taught to attract men by being more accommodating, more pleasing, more present. But the paradox is these men fall deeply, not when you give them everything, but when you are centered enough to give them space to find you. That's the first revelation most overlook. When a man sees that you do not need him to complete you, he finally sees you. Not as a role to fulfill, not as a body to possess, but as a presence to engage with. Again and again and again, this is where it begins. Not in performance, but in presence. Now, let us go deeper into the subtle signs, the 6 moves that often go unnoticed, but shape the deepest emotional journey of a man falling in love. Let us begin with a simple truth, one that often eludes us in a world that moves too quickly, speaks too loudly, and rarely pauses to listen. Real connection does not happen in noise. It does not bloom in the rush of texting, performing, or chasing. Connection, especially the kind that leads a man to fall deeply in love, requires something far more rare. It requires presence. Presence is not about being physically close. It is not about sitting across from someone or filling the air with conversation. Presence is an energy, a vibration, a sense of groundedness that emanates from a person who is fully aligned with themselves. And this, more than beauty, more than clever words, more than any act, is what captures the male heart in a way that feels unforgettable. There is a reason why a woman can walk into a room silently and shift the energy without speaking a word, without seeking attention. There is a depth in her calm, a confidence that is not loud but unmistakable. She is not there to be chosen. She is there simply because she chooses herself first. And that choice, whether conscious or unconscious, speaks to something ancient in the masculine mind. It speaks to the part of him that longs for stillness in a storm, that longs to be invited into something deeper than surface attraction. This is why men do not fall in love the way many assume. They do not fall because of grand gestures or even physical intimacy alone. These may excite the body, but they rarely anchor the soul. What anchors a man's soul is a woman who has mastered her presence, one who radiates a certain emotional frequency that is not dependent on his response to her. Her value is not tethered to his approval. And in that detachment, there is power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that invites, that beckons, that draws in without force. Presence is cultivated, not performed. It is born from self-awareness, from learning how to regulate your emotions, how to calm your nervous system when others are anxious, from knowing your worth when others may forget theirs, and from holding yourself with dignity, even in the face of rejection or misunderstanding. These are not easy practices. They require discipline. They require inner stillness. They require a kind of maturity that is not taught in most schools, nor modeled in many relationships. But once a woman begins to embody this path, she becomes unforgettable. Consider a story. A man once spoke of the woman he loved the most in his life. He had dated many, even loved some. But only one remained etched in his soul. She never needed me, he said. She wanted me, but she didn't need me. And in that, I felt free. But I also felt drawn to her in a way I couldn't explain, because she made space for me without trying to keep me. That is the power of presence. It gives space, but the space does not feel like distance. It feels sacred. It feels like something worth entering with care. Science also supports this. Studies in emotional intelligence and neuroscience show that we are magnetically drawn to emotionally regulated individuals. The brain especially the amygdala, constantly scans for cues of safety or threat. When a man perceives emotional calm in a woman, he associates her presence with safety. This activates oxytocin and dopamine, not only the neurochemicals of attraction, but of trust and long-term bonding. And here lies the shift. Presence is not about being passive. It is about being intentional. It is about becoming the kind of person who carries inner peace like a quiet storm, gentle on the outside, but unwavering within. When a woman sits across from a man and does not chase, fix, or impress, but simply listens, breathes, and holds her center, he notices. Even if he cannot articulate it, something in him awakens, because she is not trying to be someone. She already is. A woman's presence teaches a man how to slow down, how to feel, how to notice, in a world where many women are conditioned to compete, overgive, or be constantly available. The one who is fully in herself becomes rare. And what is rare is remembered. Not because she withholds, but because she offers something deeper than appearance. She offers her essence. And here we arrive at a deeper layer. Presence is not only attractive, it is healing. Many men, whether consciously or not, carry emotional wounds from childhood, from broken relationships, from unmet expectations. When they encounter a woman who holds herself with calm strength, it sends a message to those inner wounds. You are safe now, not because she fixes them, not because she mothers them, but because she does not abandon herself in trying to gain their affection. And in that constancy, in that unwavering self-connection, something opens. Love begins. Now, let us look beyond presence. Because presence may open the door, but what keeps a man walking through it, again and again, is something deeper. It is respect. Respect is a misunderstood concept in modern relationships, often reduced to compliance or obedience. It is far more sacred than that. Respect is the energy that says, I honor you as you are, but I will not dishonor myself to keep you. It is the balance between seeing someone's potential and not tolerating their patterns that hurt your soul. In the context of a man falling in love, respect is the invisible thread that weaves through every meaningful interaction. A man may be physically attracted to many, but he only falls deeply when he senses that a woman respects herself enough to guide the emotional tone of the relationship. She does not beg, she does not chase, she does not fear silence, because her respect for herself is not conditional. It is rooted in clarity. There is a silent agreement in emotionally mature relationships. I will meet you where you are, but not if it means losing myself in the process. And when a man sees this kind of inner integrity in a woman, it draws something different from him. It invites him to rise, to lead from his higher self, not his ego, to engage with her not as a possession, but as a partner. Respect sets the rhythm. Without it, love becomes imbalance, either neediness or control. With it, love becomes a dance, each person moving in awareness of the other, without stepping on each other's boundaries. Respect is communicated in countless subtle ways. It is in the way a woman says no without anger. It is in how she walks away from disrespect, not to punish, but to protect her spirit. It is in how she disagrees with grace, how she sets time for herself, how she does not compromise her values to be liked. And above all, it is in how she treats herself when no one is watching. A man observes these things, even if he doesn't verbalize them. On a deep level, he senses whether a woman is leading from self-respect or from fear of abandonment. And his level of emotional investment responds accordingly. For men do not fall in love with those who are always available. They fall in love with those who are emotionally rooted. There is an old proverb: where there is no honor, love cannot survive. And honor begins with self-respect. Many women, out of fear of losing a man, compromise their boundaries early. They overlook red flags. They rationalize behavior. they give without receiving. And slowly, they trade their self-respect for emotional proximity. But what they often find is that the man begins to pull away, not because she gave too little, but because she gave herself away. There is a story of a woman who once dated a man who was charming, successful, and well-liked. In the beginning, he was attentive. She gave freely, her time, her attention, her energy, but he grew distant. She tried harder. She became more available, more flexible, more forgiving, yet he grew colder. Finally, in her pain, she withdrew. Not out of anger, but because she realized she had forgotten herself, and something unexpected happened. The man returned, but this time with more respect. Because when she chose herself again, she reminded him who she truly was. And in doing so, she gave him a chance to choose her, not her fear, not her performance, but her essence. Respect is not about playing games. It is not about withholding love. It is about aligning with truth. When a woman holds her standards, not as walls, but as sacred boundaries, she becomes a mirror for the man. He either rises or he reveals he was not ready. But either way, she remains whole. Neuroscience affirms that emotional clarity creates psychological safety. When someone respects themselves and communicates from that space, it reduces uncertainty in the relationship dynamic. This allows the other person to feel safer, clearer, and more emotionally invested. Men are not drawn to chaos. They are drawn to women who bring clarity to their emotional world. Not through words alone, but through consistency. And this is why respect is not just a concept. It is a form of energy. A man can feel when a woman respects herself. It shows in her posture, in the way she says, "I'm not available tonight," without apologizing, in how she handles conflict without becoming reactive, in how she values her peace more than pleasing others. And so, when a man meets a woman who embodies both presence and respect, he begins to fall, not all at once, but deeply, quietly, steadily, like a mountain being drawn to the stillness of the sky. He may not understand it at first, but something in him knows this is not ordinary. This is not performance. This is truth. Presence awakens his heart. Respect commands his soul. And between the two, a deeper love is born. One not made of conditions, but of conscious choice. A love that is not afraid of stillness. A love that does not chase or prove. A love that begins, always, with inner awareness. In every meaningful connection, there comes a moment, not always loud, not always obvious, when the heart hesitates. It wonders, am I safe here? This question may never be spoken aloud, but it echoes silently in the nervous system. A man may laugh, may touch, may even speak words of affection. But if that question remains unanswered, something within him holds back. This is the delicate truth many overlook. Men fall in love through emotional safety, not just chemistry. Emotional safety is not about avoiding disagreement or creating a conflict-free bubble. It is something far more essential. It is the sense that within your presence, he is not being judged, tested, or required to earn his place through constant performance. It is the feeling that even in his imperfection, even in his silence, he is accepted, not blindly, but respectfully. He feels emotionally unarmed in your presence, not because you've weakened him, but because you've never weaponized his vulnerability. When a man feels emotionally safe, his nervous system shifts, his guard relaxes, his mind no longer scans for threats or expectations. He enters into what psychology refers to as the parasympathetic state, where healing, trust, and deeper bonding become possible. It is in this calm state that love is no longer rushed or resisted. It is allowed. But how does a woman create such a space? By mastering her own nervous system, because emotional safety is first created by self-regulation. A woman who knows how to remain calm in chaos, grounded in discomfort, and responsive instead of reactive, becomes a sanctuary. She is not carried away by his moods. She does not mirror his panic with panic of her own. She holds steady, and in doing so, she communicates something profound. You are not my emotional project. I am not here to fix you or to fear you. I am here with you, not above you, not beneath you. That steadiness is what most men long for, though few know how to ask. Because in a world that often demands them to be strong without softness, they rarely experience relationships where they can be both seen and safe. So when they encounter a woman who listens without trying to fix, who disagrees without demeaning, who holds space without losing herself, they find something rare, and men fall for what is rare. Consider a real moment. A man once shared that the reason he loved his partner deeply had little to do with how she looked or what she did for him. It was a night when he had failed, professionally, emotionally, and mentally. He came home expecting disappointment, maybe even criticism. Instead, she said nothing. She looked at him, handed him a glass of water, and sat next to him. They didn't talk. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer advice. She was simply present. Calm, soft, he cried, not because she spoke healing words, but because she gave him space to break without being broken. That is emotional safety. It is the space in which a man learns he does not need to wear his armor to be loved. And when the armor drops, the soul begins to breathe. This emotional space does not mean a woman abandons her own needs or silences her own voice. It means she learns how to speak her truth from clarity, not from chaos. She expresses, not accuses. She invites conversation, not confrontation. She understands timing, knowing that some truths are better spoken when the mind is calm, not when the body is triggered. This discipline creates peace, not the absence of conflict, but the ability to navigate it without harming each other. In emotionally mature relationships, safety is built through repeated acts of respect under pressure. It is the tone used during arguments. It is the way each partner repairs after misunderstanding. It is the softness in the eyes after a hard day. When a woman becomes the source of such stability, it awakens something ancient in a man. His instincts, often trained for defense, soften, and when he no longer feels the need to protect himself from her, he begins to protect her heart instead. But there is another element often misunderstood. Emotional safety is not created by excessive closeness. It is not about constant availability, emotional enmeshment, or over-explaining every feeling. It is also about space, and space, when used with wisdom, creates something that is often overlooked: mystery. Mystery is not manipulation. It is not withholding to control. Mystery is a sacred silence. It is a space that allows curiosity to breathe. It is the pause that allows the other to come closer, not because they are forced, but because they want to understand, to discover, to lean in. In modern relationships, mystery has become scarce. We are told to communicate everything, to expose all, to be endlessly accessible. But this erodes something vital. Just as a flame needs air to burn, love needs space to grow. Not distance born from disconnection, but distance that allows individuality to remain alive within union. When a woman keeps a part of her world unexplained, when she allows her inner life to have quiet corners that are not immediately shared, it invites a man into pursuit, not the pursuit of possession, but of understanding. He does not want to conquer her. He wants to know her. But to know her, she must first be unknowable in some ways. There is a story of a couple who had been married for many years. The husband once said, "What I love most about her is that even after all this time, she still surprises me. Not because she hides things, but because she continues to grow in ways that I must slow down to see." That is mystery. Growth that is not announced, but embodied. Mystery is not about secrets. It is about sacred inner life. It is the quiet rituals a woman keeps, the passions she nurtures, the questions she reflects upon without needing answers. It is the way she sits in stillness without needing to be entertained, the way she enjoys her solitude, the way she walks into a room without needing validation. This, too, is mystery. It is the kind of depth that cannot be faked. It must be lived. A woman who cultivates mystery is not playing hard to get. She is simply not afraid to be alone. And in that energy, there is magnetism, because men are drawn not to women who chase them, but to women who are on a path that they want to walk alongside. A man falls in love when he sees that a woman's world is rich, even without him. And in that richness, he is not diminished. He is invited. This invitation cannot be rushed. Emotional mystery, like emotional safety, unfolds in time. A woman who speaks everything too soon often leaves nothing for a man to explore. But the one who offers glimpses, who shares layers slowly, who speaks with silence as much as with words, she becomes unforgettable. Because she gives him something modern relationships often fail to offer: the space to wonder. Mystery also teaches patience. It slows down the pace of connection. In a world of instant gratification, this is powerful. It means love does not explode. It unfolds. It reveals itself in quiet moments, in late night thoughts, in the way he begins to miss her not because of absence, but because of depth. The mind craves answers, but the heart, the soul, they crave awe, and awe is born in mystery. This is why spiritual teachings often speak of the divine in terms of mystery. Because what is truly sacred cannot be fully grasped. It can only be honored. In the same way, a woman who embodies mystery does not demand to be understood in every moment. She simply offers her truth and lets it echo, unfold, and deepen. To hold mystery is to trust that you do not need to explain everything to be loved, that you do not need to share every emotion the moment it arises, that your silence can be as powerful as your speech, that your energy speaks louder than your effort. When emotional safety and emotional mystery are combined, something powerful happens. A man does not feel pushed. He feels pulled, not by force, but by depth. He feels seen, but not dissected. He feels invited, but not expected. He feels called, not to fix you, but to meet you. And in this meeting, love is not chased. It is chosen. When a woman builds herself from within, when she learns to regulate her emotions and hold her center, she becomes safe. When she preserves her inner life, allowing room for awe and wonder, she becomes mysterious. Together, these two qualities form a balanced few can resist. Safety tells him, you are welcome here. Mystery tells him, there is more to discover. And in the quiet space between the two, love is not only born, it is sustained. A woman who walks in alignment with herself carries a quiet power. It's not loud. It's not demanding. It doesn't cry out for attention or validation. And yet, when she enters a room, something changes. Not because she's trying to impress, but because her presence speaks louder than performance ever could. In relationships, this kind of woman stands apart. She doesn't chase, prove, or perform to be chosen. She knows who she is. She honors what she needs. She moves through the world, not with arrogance, but with an inner clarity that makes her magnetic. This alignment with her values, her truth, her energy, this is what draws a man into deeper love. Not the way she dresses, not how agreeable she is, and certainly not how much she sacrifices to please him. Performance is rooted in fear. Alignment is rooted in presence. Many women have been conditioned, sometimes subtly, sometimes explicitly, to perform in relationships. Smile more, speak less. Be accommodating, don't be too much. Be available, be sweet. Don't make him feel uncomfortable. Don't take up too much space. And without realizing it, many grow up learning to disconnect from their own truth in order to gain approval. In the early stages of romance, This often looks like enthusiasm, like generosity, like love. But over time, the disconnect begins to show, not in loud ways, but in the quiet erosion of self. A woman who constantly performs eventually becomes exhausted. She starts to question, why do I give so much and still feel unseen? Or, why does he not appreciate me? The answer is not in how much she gives, but in the energy from which she gives. When giving comes from misalignment, it breeds resentment. When a woman acts from fear of being unloved, the energy carries through. Even if the gestures seem selfless, men are more emotionally perceptive than they are often given credit for. While they may not always articulate what they feel, they sense when a woman is not fully present with herself. They feel when she is saying yes while meaning no. They notice when her laughter carries tension, when her silence isn't peaceful, but resigned. And this subconscious noticing affects how they respond to her. Not because they are cruel, but because people instinctively trust what is whole and hesitate around what is fragmented. Alignment is not perfection. It's not about having every answer or never feeling doubt. It's about staying connected to your truth, even in uncertainty. It's about being able to say, "This is who I am right now," without shame. A woman in alignment does not shift her boundaries to be liked. She does not betray herself to avoid discomfort. She is not afraid of losing a man if keeping him requires losing herself. There's a kind of sacred authority that comes from this way of living. It doesn't require force. It doesn't demand loyalty. It simply radiates an energy that says, "I am enough." And this is the energy that a healthy man respects. Not the kind of man who seeks control. Not the kind of man who thrives on insecurity, but the kind of man who is ready to meet a woman soul to soul. When she stands in alignment, she becomes the mirror to his own readiness. There is a story of a woman who had spent years in relationships where she felt she had to adjust herself to be accepted. She changed her tone. She avoided difficult conversations. She agreed when she wanted to disagree, all for the sake of keeping the peace. But over time, she realized the peace she was keeping came at the cost of her own aliveness. She felt dimmed, invisible, misunderstood. One day, she made a choice, not out of bitterness, not out of rebellion, but from a deep exhaustion of self-betrayal. She chose to live in alignment. She began saying what she meant, kindly but clearly. She stopped apologizing for needing space. She began expressing her real preferences, even when they didn't match her partner's. Something shifted. The man she was with either had to meet her at that level, or naturally fall away. And eventually, the relationship dissolved, not because she failed, but because she had finally stopped failing herself. A few months later, she met someone new. And this time, she did not perform. She simply showed up as herself. She wasn't afraid to take time to respond. She wasn't afraid to say, "I'm not ready for that conversation yet." She didn't rush intimacy. She didn't downplay her needs. And to her surprise, he leaned in closer, not out of obligation, but out of intrigue, out of respect, out of admiration for her clarity. Alignment is attractive because it's rare, especially in a culture that rewards speed, conformity, and external validation. But love, real love, isn't built on speed. It's built on substance, and alignment is the foundation of substance. When a woman is aligned, her energy is coherent. Her body, her words, her actions, they all speak the same language. There is no inner war between what she says and what she feels. No split between her boundaries and her behavior. She becomes consistent, not rigid, but reliable. And this consistency creates safety in the relationship. A man begins to trust not just what she says, but who she is. There's a psychological principle known as congruence. It means the alignment between a person's internal experience and their outward expression. In therapy, it's known to be a marker of emotional health. In relationships, it's what allows two people to truly see each other. A woman who is congruent says no when she means no. She doesn't smile to avoid conflict. She doesn't say she's fine when she's not. And this emotional honesty becomes an anchor in the relationship. At first, some men may find this confronting, especially those used to women who over-function or suppress their needs. But over time, the right man will recognize the gift, because in a world of emotional confusion, being with someone in alignment is like coming home. He doesn't have to guess. He doesn't have to play games. He knows where he stands. And in that knowing, he feels free. Freedom within intimacy is what allows love to deepen. A man doesn't fall in love because a woman disappears into him. He falls in love when he feels fully himself in her presence. And that starts when she is fully herself. There's a deeper wisdom at play here. When a woman lives in alignment, she is connected to something larger than approval or fear. She begins to tap into her intuition, her body's intelligence, her inner rhythm, and this connection creates grace. She speaks not to impress, but to express. She moves not to seduce, but to embody. Her life becomes an extension of her values. This kind of woman doesn't need to convince a man to stay. She doesn't need to ask, "What do I need to do to keep him interested?" Because she understands, interest that must be performed is temporary. But when a man chooses her from a place of truth, when he witnesses her living with alignment, the bond becomes rooted. It is not built on fantasy. It is built on presence. And this alignment spills into every part of her life, not just romance. When she works with integrity. When she rests without guilt. When she speaks with mindfulness. When she says no, it is not punishment. It is preservation. She becomes her own source of peace, her own source of inspiration. And a relationship becomes a place to share that, not a place to escape the absence of it. Some may say, "But won't this intimidate a man?" Perhaps, but only the kind who is not yet ready to meet you there. And those men are not meant for you. Not because they are bad, but because you are no longer shrinking. And the moment you stop shrinking, you stop being available for dynamics that require you to abandon your alignment. A man who is truly ready to love will not only appreciate your alignment, he will be inspired by it. Your integrity will invite his own. Your clarity will sharpen his focus. Your honesty will soften his armor, and your steadiness will deepen his trust. This is the gift of alignment. It becomes a silent teacher. You do not need to instruct him, change him, or mold him. You simply walk in your truth and allow your energy to do the rest. In the early stages of a relationship, there will be tests. Not the kind you set, but the kind life naturally offers. Misunderstandings, disappointments, unmet expectations. These are not signs of failure. They are invitations to return to alignment. To ask yourself, am I staying true to myself here? Or am I reverting to old patterns for the sake of comfort? When you catch yourself bending, remember love is not about disappearing into another. It is about being seen as you are. And only when you show up fully, as messy, as imperfect, as evolving, you give the other person a chance to love the real you. Let yourself be that person. The one who doesn't have all the answers. The one who sometimes trembles when she speaks her truth. The one who says, "I don't know, but I'm willing to find out." That honesty, that vulnerability, that alignment, that's what invites real intimacy. There's a woman I once knew who practiced this daily. She would wake each morning and ask herself, "What do I need today to remain aligned?" Some days it was silence. Other days, expression. Sometimes it was solitude. Sometimes it was closeness. And she honored that need, not perfectly, but consistently. her partner noticed. He didn't always understand it, but he respected it, because he saw that her alignment made her radiant, not always easy, but always real. Over time, their relationship grew not because they avoided conflict, but because they navigated it with clarity. She didn't try to win arguments. She tried to stay true, and in staying true, she gave him permission to be honest as well. Their love became less about roles, more about rhythm. Less about pleasing, more about presence. This is what happens when alignment becomes a daily practice, not a goal to achieve, but a state to return to, over and over again. And it is this returning to yourself, to your body, to your truth, that becomes your compass. Even when love is uncertain, even when a man seems distant, even when your heart aches to please, you return, you breathe, you remember. The most sacred relationship is the one you have with your own alignment. And from that place, every other relationship becomes a reflection, not of your worth, but of your choices. Let your alignment choose. Let it lead. Let it whisper what your mind sometimes forgets, that you do not need to perform to be loved. You only need to be present. And in your presence, the right man will not only see you, he will recognize you. There is a kind of love that grows quietly, without demands. It is not built on how much someone can give or how often they say yes. It is not sustained by grand gestures, nor does it depend on sacrificing one's well-being to keep the peace. This kind of love flourishes when there is reciprocity, not the kind of exchange that keeps score, but the kind of giving that flows from wholeness, not from emotional debt. In many relationships, the pattern begins with good intentions. One person gives more. They care deeply. They offer themselves emotionally, mentally, even physically, hoping that love will deepen if they just give a little more. But over time, the imbalance becomes heavy, silent, undeniable. What was once an act of love begins to feel like obligation. What was once a joy becomes a duty. And without meaning to, they begin to give from emptiness instead of overflow. A man does not fall in love because a woman overextends herself. He falls in love when what she gives comes from fullness, when her kindness is not coated with exhaustion, and her support is not a silent cry for recognition. When a woman gives from her essence, not from fear or habit, but from a place of conscious choice, it reaches him, not just at the surface, but at a level of soul where authentic connection begins. There is a saying, you can pour and pour, but no one can drink from a broken cup. The most beautiful form of giving in a relationship is the kind that does not deplete you. And a most powerful form of love is one that is offered freely, not extracted through guilt, not sustained through performance. Many women have been taught, by upbringing, by society, by culture, that their worth is tied to how much they do for others, that to love a man is to serve him endlessly, to anticipate his needs, to support him without question, to love without limits, even if those limits are hurting her. But this is not love. This is self-abandonment wrapped in loyalty. This is the slow erosion of self under the weight of emotional imbalance. A woman must ask herself, am I giving because I choose to, or because I fear what will happen if I don't? That question alone can begin to unravel years of unconscious patterns, because when giving becomes a requirement rather than a reflection of truth, the energy shifts. What once bonded people now builds resentment. What once brought joy now brings quiet sorrow. Love cannot survive where emotional debt becomes the currency. When a man receives from a woman who is giving beyond her emotional means, it creates a dynamic of dependency, not partnership. He may grow accustomed to it. He may even expect it. But it will not deepen his respect. It will not draw him into true emotional intimacy. Because at some level, he knows she is not giving from strength, but from survival. True reciprocity begins not in the relationship, but within oneself. A woman who is deeply connected to her own emotional needs, who honors her limits and rests when she is tired, who says no when something violates her peace. She is practicing the foundation of healthy giving. She is saying, I will not give you what costs me my center. I will not love you at the expense of abandoning myself. And this is the kind of woman who becomes unforgettable, not because she does everything, but because she does what matters from a place of integrity. Her yes means something. Her love carries weight. Her presence is felt, not because she's always available, but because when she is there fully. There was once a woman who always said yes. Yes to plans. Yes to helping. Yes to the man who rarely asked how she was feeling, but always accepted her care. She thought that if she kept giving, eventually he would appreciate her more, that he would realize her value, that he would begin to reciprocate. But instead, he grew distant, less engaged, less thoughtful. And the more she gave, the more invisible she became. Eventually, something inside her broke, not from anger, but from fatigue. She stopped saying yes automatically. She started asking herself, do I really want to? She began to take space, to move slower, to speak up when something didn't feel right. And in that shift, everything changed. The man noticed. At first, he resisted. He questioned the change. But then, he began to mirror it. He started asking what she needed. He became more emotionally present. And when he didn't, she didn't bend to compensate. That story is not about control, it's about balance. When giving is no longer one-sided, love begins to breathe again. Reciprocity is not measured in equal actions. It is not about trading favors or tracking time. It is about energy. If a woman brings emotional depth, the man brings presence. If she offers softness, he offers stability. If she supports his vision, he honors her emotional world. When these energies meet, something sacred emerges, not because they are the same, but because they are mutually honoring. Relationships are not built on effort alone. They are built on resonance, on emotional responsiveness, on the willingness of both people to show up, not just physically, but emotionally. And in that space, where both are giving and receiving, love becomes a force of growth, not a place of sacrifice. There is a deep difference between giving as a gift and giving as a plea. One says, this is who I am, and I choose to share it with you. The other says, please love me back so I don't feel empty. The first empowers, the second entraps. And many men, even if unconsciously, sense this difference. They are drawn to women who offer from wholeness, because wholeness invites, not demands. It uplifts, not drains. It creates space, not pressure. This kind of giving is rooted in awareness. A woman who is aware of her energy, her emotional rhythms, her cycles of capacity and need, she becomes powerful, not because she controls the relationship, but because she knows how to regulate the emotional climate. She knows when to lean in and when to step back. She gives with open hands, not with the tight grip of expectation. A man will often reflect the emotional posture of the woman he is with. If she gives without boundaries, he may begin to take without noticing. If she gives from pressure, he may retreat. But when she gives from choice, from a calm heart, from a centered mind, he senses the difference. He feels the sacredness in the offering, and he is more likely to rise to meet her with equal depth. The heart does not open when it feels indebted. It opens when it feels inspired, and that inspiration comes from authenticity. When a woman expresses her love not as a transaction, but as a reflection of her inner state, it is magnetic. When she says, I support you because I want to, not because I'm afraid you'll leave if I don't, she creates trust. When she says, I need space right now, and it doesn't mean I love you less, she models emotional clarity. And when she says, I expect mutual effort because I value what we're building. She reinforces a foundation of respect. There's an emotional intelligence to this kind of love. It doesn't rush. It doesn't over-explain. It doesn't try to prove itself. It simply flows from inner fullness. And when it does, a man feels more than just attraction. He feels home. This is not always easy, especially for those who have grown up watching women around them give until they were depleted. For many, love has been modeled as endurance, not joy, as survival, not mutuality, and it takes courage to shift that narrative, to say, I will no longer offer what costs me my peace, to say, I deserve to receive in return, to say, I am worthy of a love that gives back. It is not selfish to require reciprocity. It is sacred because your energy is sacred. Your time, your care, your affection, your presence, all of it matters. And the man who is meant to walk beside you will not take it for granted. He will honor it. He will match it. He will reflect it. This is not about perfection. Some days you will give more. Some days he will. That's natural. But the overall balance should feel supportive, not lopsided. Love should feel like a river flowing in both directions, not a well you are constantly filling alone. And when you find yourself slipping into old patterns, over-giving, over-functioning, waiting for him to notice, pause, breathe, return to your center, ask, am I giving from overflow or depletion? The answer to that question will guide your next step. It will remind you that love is not a performance. It is not a test you must pass. It is not a reward for self-sacrifice. Love is the space where two whole people come together to build something neither could build alone, not because they need each other to survive, but because they choose to thrive together. There's an old parable of a woman who walked through a forest each morning collecting water. She carried 2 pots, one whole, the other cracked. Every day, the cracked pot leaked water as she walked. For years, it believed it had failed her. One day it said, "Why don't you replace me? I've never brought you a full pot of water." She smiled and said, "Look behind you." The cracked pot turned, and there it saw flowers blooming along the path, on only one side. She said, "I planted seeds along your side of the path. Every day you watered them without knowing. Sometimes the giving we do, when intentional and meaningful, creates beauty we cannot always see. But that beauty only flourishes when the giving is rooted in awareness, not obligation. Let your giving be like that, not blind, not constant, but conscious. Let it water something true. Let it nourish something mutual. Let it reflect who you are, not what you fear. And trust that the right man will feel this. He will see that your love is not a currency to be spent, but a river to be joined. He will not take more than he gives. He will not allow you to carry the weight alone. He will bring balance, depth and presence, not because you begged for it, but because he, too, is ready to love from fullness. In the quiet spaces between words and gestures, love reveals its true nature. It does not need to be chased, forced, or earned through exhaustion. It blossoms in environments where the heart feels seen, the mind feels understood, and the soul feels free to simply be. A man falls in love not just because of what a woman gives, but because of who she becomes when she is rooted in her truth. When she creates emotional safety, she becomes his peace. When she holds mystery, she becomes his intrigue. When she walks in alignment, she becomes his mirror. And when she gives with reciprocity, she becomes his equal. Love, at its most powerful, is not born in performance. It is awakened in presence. The presence of a woman who knows herself deeply, who offers not pieces but the whole of her being, grounded in clarity, unshaken by fear, and free from the need to control. When a woman chooses this path, not to be adored, but to live authentically, she attracts what is meant for her. She doesn't pursue love to fill a void. she allows it to meet her in fullness. And from that place, a different kind of connection becomes possible. One not built on fantasy, but on shared growth, emotional wisdom, and inner stillness. The love she receives is a reflection of the love she first gave herself. That is where the journey begins, and where the deepest love, the kind that lasts, is ultimately found.